Now, as the final play ended in the Alabama-Michigan game last night in overtime, Wolverine fans rejoiced at finally winning a playoff game, albeit in a fashion that definitely took some years off their lives. But make no mistake, this core and group did not come back just to beat Ohio State again and win the Big Ten. They did not come back just to make the college football playoff or win a game in the college football playoff. They came back to win a national championship and put Michigan's name once again at the top of the college football mountain. But that goal is still 4 quarters away. So don't celebrate yet, because they are going to face a Washington team that doesn't have the letters SEC on their chest, but they do have a few guys with just an S. And Michael Penix, who throws more frozen ropes than Sub-Zero, is the main one of the bunch. Now, this matchup stylistically is about as far away on the spectrum as it gets from one another. One team is a smash-mouth, downhill run game team that lives off play action and defense. The other is a team that typically passes to run. And even though that's the case, don't confuse air superiority with softness. The Huskies can run it when they have to, and defensively, they hit with a vengeance. We've seen that. Now, which side will flinch? Well, let's break it down, because either way, it's going to be a doozy. I'm going to bring in my former Michigan quarterback, now getting ready to finally see his team play for a national championship, David Cohn. My brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crane. David, I want to break down both of these games from last night. But just from a 30,000-foot view, how rewarding was last night being a Michigan fan that the last 2 years have watched the team get there, lose a game that they were really supposed to lose against a juggernaut Georgia team, and then lose a game against a TCU team that kind of snuck them a little bit, but you got over the hump and you did it coming back in the last 4 minutes and then an over.
Yeah, it was really incredible, and I know we're going to recap both of those semifinal games last night, but just from a personal perspective, you know, that program believed in me coming out of high school when all I wanted to do was play college football. They gave me a shot. So to see them in this position to play for a national championship for the first time before I was ever even affiliated with this university is incredible. And yesterday was some of the most fun I've had watching football in a long time, and it wasn't just about Michigan winning. We had an awesome playoff, and we said for an entire month, Florida State, without a doubt, deserved an opportunity to be in that college football playoff. But when they put Alabama in there instead, we all knew it was going to create very compelling matchups, no matter how they ordered it. Well, that's what we got. In that Michigan-Alabama game going to overtime, then we got Washington-Texas coming down to a wire. It was awesome football to watch, and the best team of the bunch to me was Washington, with the best player on the field, Michael Penix Jr. Whatever he wants to do with the football, he does. I think he's the best pure passer of the ball that I can remember in the last half decade. I'm going to put Joe Burrow up there as well, but whatever he wants to do with the football, he does. I noticed this at Indiana, but he had some injuries he was dealing with. He transfers to Washington, and to see the type of year they've had has been incredible. I had him in my college football playoff, and yet they've still exceeded all the expectations I have. I think the matchup is going to be fascinating. They had a 65% drop back percentage through the first half of the season. Like you said, throwing to run the football, but then on the back half, Dylan Johnson averaged 135 yards on the ground. They had over a 100-yard rusher when they played Oregon, and in the conference championship again when they played Oregon. Yesterday, they beat a Texas team that really down the stretch of the season looked almost unbeatable. I think 2 things here, one that benefits Washington, one that benefits Michigan. For the last couple years, what's the hump that Michigan has had to get over? It was beating Ohio, because you can't even beat your rival. So when they finally did that 2 seasons ago, they exhaled, and you get drummed by Georgia. Well, last year, what was the hump you couldn't get over? Beating Ohio on the road. You did that, you exhaled, you overlooked TCU, you got beat. That created a new hump to get over for Michigan. Winning a college football playoff game. You did that yesterday. I'm wondering, does this team exhale now and see, oh, Washington, we got the easiest possible draw in the championship. We've already accomplished what we set out to do, which was win a college football playoff game. Do they exhale before they finish and win a national championship? But then on the flip side of that, I think they already played their tight game. They played as tight as they could yesterday, which I know we're going to break down. I don't think you'll see some of the same mistakes again. And if they're able to do what their strength and their identity is, which is run the football, they'll keep that really great quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., on the sideline more so than Texas was able to do yesterday, who ran 5 plays in the third quarter.
Yeah, without a doubt, and we're going to dive deep into what happened in those games yesterday. But you bring up a great point talking about this matchup. And you look, we always say styles make fights. Styles make fights. What I find fascinating is that Washington is the most physical finesse team that I've ever seen. You know, you think about an offensive line winning the Joe Moore Award, and you think about Georgia, and you think about Bama, and these offensive lines where they're downhill run, and they want to get an 11, 12 personnel, run power and run counter. The thing I find the most interesting about Washington is their versatility through really what has been mostly an air raid situation out there until they have needed it in the playoff. You have got to be able to, at some point, dribble with your left hand in these games. You're not going to be able to just line up and do what you've done the whole year, because typically up front, it's a lot more even than it is with some of these top teams because the game is won and lost up front. And I always say that the fastest way to get in between 2 points isn't a straight line. It's give Michael Penix a football and let him throw it. And when you watch what Michigan is going to try and do against Washington, I think Michigan's going to be able to line up and run the ball against Washington. I don't think so. Texas ran it enough yesterday. Yeah. The run game was really working. Yeah, you have a guy in Quinn Ewers. We're going to get to Michigan, like I said, against Alabama, and their lack of running the ball in the first half too. But I don't think Michigan is going to get too cute against Washington. Washington's got to stop the run. It's pretty simple. You got to make J.J. McCarthy beat you. Because I still don't think J.J. McCarthy can beat you through the air if you're a legitimate defense. Yeah. I think there's some questions. Going back to the first play from last night when he threw it straight to Caleb Downs when his first read was wide open, talking about J.J. McCarthy. But when I look at Washington offensively going up against Michigan, I was very impressed by the way Michigan was able to cover in the back end when Jalen Milroe had time, and the couple times he was able to get outside the pocket and look downfield. Alabama typically gets their big plays there. They hit Georgia a couple times there. But Blaine, when I look at this Washington offense going against Michigan's defense, the key is, can Michigan get to Michael Penix? Because you're not covering all three of those guys all game if he has time.
You can't.
And he can make every single throw. The hashes don't matter. He can be on one hash, throw it to the bottom of the numbers on the other, and whether it's the NFL or whether it's college. That's his best weapon, is his ability, talking about Penix, to not only make every throw from a strength standpoint. Yes, he's got a big arm. He can throw it down the field. But he's what everybody wanted Joe Milton to be. He's got an absolute cannon, but he's got nuance. He can drop it in the bucket. He can throw the lollipop screen. To put it very bluntly and very plainly, Michael Penix has every pitch. He can control every pitch and every count. And when you can do that, it makes you so much more dangerous. And then that run game with Dylan Johnson and those guys can come downhill. And that Washington offensive line pass protects so well. So when you look at this game, give me a key for Michigan and give me a key for Washington.
My key for Michigan is getting pressure, but not pressure by blitzing. And how do you get your pressure? I think if you let Michael Penix sit in the pocket, right, all day, he will pick you apart. Michael can make all the throws, we know that, but we're going to try to at least make it hard on him at least. And how do you do that? And I think they did a great job against Alabama. That's interior pressure, right? That's pressure coming up the middle. You make Michael have to get outside and throw balls on the run, which I know he can do, but that is a little bit tougher. I thought Michigan did a great job in that game versus Alabama blitzing, but when they blitzed, they got to Jalen Milroe through the middle, and they couldn't outrun him to the sidelines. And if you can do that, if you're Michigan, because I don't think you're going to be able to blitz Michael Penix a lot like you did in Alabama. He will hurt you a lot worse than what Jalen Milroe do. If you can do that, if you can get him outside, you can get him making these tough throws, which we've seen him do, but at least make it hard on him. Because if you let him sit in the pocket and step up and you only bring 4 with the cats that he has running around outside a receiver, he will pick you apart. And if this gets into a shootout, that plays into Washington's hands, and that's the last thing Michigan wants to do.
Well, and again, we want to know what you think. We're going to open the phone lines up, 7:15 a.m. Central, 8:15 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're in the chat, please hit that like button. Doesn't take a lot to do. We really appreciate it. It helps out the show. We're going to drop a link to merch in there as well, which also helps out the show. I will say, if I'm Michigan and I'm Mentor, I'm the defensive coordinator, I do think there is a little bit of a weakness that can be exploited over time in what Washington does offensively and what Michael Penix wants to do. I am a firm believer, and there are very few quarterbacks in the world, especially ones with big arms, that get told how strong their arm is, that will nickel and dime you down the field the whole time. If I'm Michigan, I know at some point with Rome, with Polk, with McMillan, Michael Penix wants to fire the flamethrower in front of God and everybody, especially in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Do you play umbrella coverage as much as possible and make Michael Penix throw the hitch, throw the slant, throw the dig? If you are going to beat me, you are going to beat me throwing passes 12 yards and under.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to beat me because, hey, you threw a couple underneath. We wanted to come up, play press man, and here goes Rome down the field, and you're able to throw it 800 yards, and he outruns everybody. Or you hit McMillan or Polk on the post or something like that. I wonder if that's going to go in the methodology a little bit, because at some point, and I'm a firm believer in this, offensive coordinators and quarterbacks are the most greedy people on the planet, and the ones that are the best in the world. Because again, Washington's a pass-to-run team still. Let's not make some, like Washington's going to get in the eye and just start running insert and ISO and stuff like that. Do you sit here and make Michael Penix take the 5 yards, and see if he will get greedy, as opposed to, look, you got to mix it up. You got to rush forward. You got to bring pressure. You got to show pressure and back out. You got to show pressure and bring it. You want to mix. You want combo coverages. You want man. You want zone. But I wonder if that's going to go into the thought process a little bit. Because I don't think there's not a weakness other than that, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's really not. Like, you look at it like they're not bad up front.
Yeah.
They've got elite skill players. They're good in the red zone. They can affect you in all three levels. At some point, if it make a death by 1,000 cuts, will Michael Penix kill you with a death by 1,000 cuts? Because I know he wants to take that spear and just jam it in you from the jump. That's something I'll be very interested.
Well, I think Jesse Minter, the Michigan defensive coordinator, is certainly going to mix it up, but you will certainly see rush 3, drop 8 be more a part of his bag than you did against Alabama for a few reasons. One, Michael Penix Jr. is going to be able to get to his hot routes a little bit more consistently and quicker than a younger quarterback like Jalen Monroe was able to. And the second reason for what you talked about, Blaine, is that Washington offensive line, they've allowed 11 sacks this season. For a team that has a 65% drop back percentage that wants to run to pass, 11 sacks, this game will feature the last 3 offensive lines to win the Joe Moore Award. Michigan 2 years in a row, and then Washington this year. So if your plan is to just heat Michael Penix Jr. up every single play and you don't get home, be very careful and plus, what are you playing on the back end of that? Are you straight man? Are you running fire zone? All those sorts of things. One thing I find interesting here right now as we sit here, the line is -4.5 Michigan, over under 55. If Washington had a USC logo on the side of their helmet, or even an Oregon logo on the side of their helmet, with what they've done throughout the season, being undefeated, high-powered offense, being more physical than a lot of people expected, would this line be tighter or maybe even down to a pick 'em?
No, well, I would have said that if the line wasn't Michigan -1.5 against Alabama. I was shocked that Bama wasn't favored in that game.
Me too.
I know a lot of the money from the public was on Alabama, and it was that way for a reason. I think, going into this, if you looked at Washington had done nothing but overcome adversity in big games, right? I picked against them twice against Oregon. Every time Washington has been challenged this year, they have answered the bell. And it hasn't just all been flash, right? You've had games where they won low scoring. I think they beat Arizona 15-7, something like that. So after seeing Michigan still being favored against Alabama, I know it was the 1 seed versus the 4 seed, right? But again, in reality, I think a lot of people thought Alabama was going to win that game, and the money showed out. No, I don't. I think Washington's past that point with this team. And looking at what, Michigan being favored over Alabama, I actually don't. Now, I love the over in this game.
No, I like the line too, but God, man, it's tough to bet against this Washington team. I'm done doing it.
Yeah.
I'm done doing it. Every time I took them 3.5 yesterday because what was Texas's weakness was their secondary, right? So I know Michael Penix, these guys would have had a field day, and that is what they did. But no, man, I'm done betting against this Washington team.
This will be a conference matchup moving forward, by the way.
No, it is. Yes. All Big Ten national championship. Too, another point, looking at Washington and what they're going to do against Michigan, it's something where the red zone, we know how important it is. Being able to line up and run in the red zone is. Michael Penix moving him in the pocket. I wonder how much of that you're going to get once you get down in the red zone, because typically if you're not a team that runs it a lot, or that's not your bag, when you get down there, you've got to find a way to create space when the field shrinks. I think by moving Michael Penix, and that's where the arm strength comes in again. rolling, to his arm side, to his left. Obviously, he's unbelievably strong. But even at times where he's having to move against his arm and go the other way, the throws he can make back across the field, when you have crossers in the red zone and things like that, when you're getting match coverage, which you get a lot of, we used to call it red 7 in the red zone, being able to cause those picks and cause those crossers. What kind of coverage are you running if you're Michigan on the back end? There's so much that goes into it. But the number, we can't forget, Washington is an old team. Mm-hmm. This is an old team.
Yeah.
That's a huge advantage, right? I mean, Michigan, this is an old team. Yeah. Experience is the unteachable intangible. They send a bunch of young guys that are just running there, flying by the seat of their pants, just too, what do we say, that they're too young to realize they shouldn't be winning? That's not this game.
No.
This is a bunch of old guys. Michael Penix, 45 years old. Yeah. Like this is a bunch of old guys playing against each other, which I think should make a clean game. I love the over at 55. I love it.
Too. You took the over yesterday, Washington, Texas. Yep. That was your lock yesterday.
That was my lock yesterday, and it ended up hitting at 68. I was 4-2 yesterday, which, by the way, unbelievable betting year. You put out the graphic. It's absolutely incredible.
You got more units than an apartment complex.
I mean, you're basically building the complex.
But you're right on Michigan's. Their best unit, their most improved unit over this last 3-year winning spree has been their secondary. There was a time not that long ago, if you put the ball up in the air, I'm talking especially against some of those Urban Meyer teams, if you put the ball up in the air deep, it was either going to be complete for a big play or pass interference on Michigan. That's no longer the case. They'll have their hands full against 3 wide receivers in this game that are all going to play in the NFL. The question is, can you get enough pressure to offset that? And still, to me, the biggest thing, the best thing you can do for Michigan's defense is have long, sustained drives on offense.
And that's keeping the other offense off the field. I think the new clock rule is going to be, Michigan's obviously going to try and use it to their advantage. But when it comes to having the 3 weapons, it's like guarding the Warriors. You can't double everybody. Somebody's going to be open for the 3. You better just hope they don't knock it down.
And when it comes to units, let's just make sure we're out here catching punts. If you're Michigan,
I want to get into that.
I think that was a one-time thing. They panicked and they got away with it.
Yeah, Noah's never dropped a punt. Hey, YouTube, thanks for checking us out. It's 2024. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Grab some merch. We got mugs. We got candles. We got hoodies at thedailywire.com/shop. Check out Crane & Company there. And make sure you share the show and check out Lady Ballers, one of the hit movies of 2023.